Christy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Krista. How are you today?
I'm so well. I'm so excited to have you here today and to be talking to you about your book and all the things you're doing in the world today. So I kind of like to kick back and relax on this first question and kind of pass it back to you and give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the listening audience and viewing audience in your own words about who you are and what you do.
Okay. So who am I and what do I do? Well, first, I'm a spiritual seeker. I'm a growth-seeking being. That's who I am. I started doing my conscious spiritual work about 28 years ago when I started to learn how to meditate, and through that time started working with energy and light. And so I was about 5 years into, working with meditation and looking for, more information on law of attraction and universal laws. And I was mastering, things in my life. Things were really changing, whether it was the kind of relationships I was in, or my body, or my finances. I mean, everything started to change. And I found myself one night, 1:05 in the morning, I was woken up by a voice inside my head that wouldn't let me sleep. So I got up and started writing, and my hand just started automatically writing, which was my first chapter in my very first book. So that happened 7 nights in a row that I was woken up at 1:05 in the morning. And I got my book published, and I started speaking on the contents of the book, and people in the audience started asking me to coach them, which I had no idea at the time what coaching was. And I had no frame of reference. And so I started going to school for it and actually just coaching people on the phone at that point, and watching them succeed and watching them start finding their ideal partners, or lose the weight, or get a job promotion, or start making more money. And I just loved the experience of being that catalyst to help somebody else find attract their dreams. So I started pursuing that as a life coach, and I've been doing that for over 23 years. I like to say that I've been coaching longer than coaching's been cool, because it used to be very woo-woo. And thank God it's more mainstream now and more accepted. But in 2008, I started a certification program called the Quantum Success Coaching Academy for law of attraction coaches. And to this day, I have certified over 3,000 law of attraction coaches. I'm an author of, I've got my 8th book on the way. My 7th book is called The Desire Factor. And I'm a wife. I'm a mom of 2 teenage boys. Cannot believe it. My baby just turned 13. So now I got 2 teenage boys, and I'm a dog mom, and that's who I am.
You are like the OG. You're like the Snoop Dogg of coaches. You're OG.
I love that. Snoop Dogg without the weed. Yeah.
You got meditation for that.
Right? So I always say they're medication or meditation. So there you go.
I love that. Thank you for putting all of that detail in there. I really appreciate it. So my second question, you mentioned a couple things back there about your own spiritual journey. I always want to understand everybody's first touch point with religion, spirituality, or nothing at all, and then where they were at. You did touch on it back there, but what did you grow up learning, and then how did you find yourself on the seeker's path?
Yeah, so I was raised, Catholic. I mean, I'm Roman Catholic, my family and everybody. And I went through all the sacraments and all that. And when I lived in Chicago, I was finding myself very lost, and we even tried to go back to, going to church every Sunday and going back to the Catholic Church. And for me, I just wasn't finding that fulfillment that I was seeking. And so, as we ask big questions in life, like what's this about, and who am I in the bigger scheme of things? When we ask those big questions, we get big answers. And very shortly after that, I moved to San Ramon, California, and I was getting my hair cut by a woman that was just so vibrant and so bubbly. And I never experienced anybody like her. It wasn't like she was just a joyful person, right? There was something internal that was different about her. And I asked her, I'm like, what do you do? And she said, well, I meditate. And for me back then, when I think of someone, my only frame of reference for someone that meditated was some guru guy sitting on a mountaintop, with the white long hair and a beard and in a white robe. sitting in yogi style, right? And so I was like, I mean, here's this hip chick from San Ramon that was like a hot stylist, hairstylist, and like my brain's just like at that moment, my brain just like went, what? I mean, it just like felt like it rewired on who meditates and what even is that. And so she gave me her meditation teacher's phone number. And back then we had big old clunky cell phones. So I was walking out of the salon with this big cell phone and calling Melanie on the phone. And it took a while for her to get back to me. But when she did, I took the first appointment and I met her at her house. And I walked into her house and there was all this like clinky, clanky new age music and candles and, you know, statues of angels everywhere. And she had me sit on the ground on a cushion instead of a couch or a chair. And she looked right at me and she said, right into my eyes, I think deeper than anybody ever looked into my soul that way. And she said, you create your own reality. And when she said that, it's like something opened up in me. And I knew that to be true. It was like, yes, like, you know, and then my mind kicked in and was like, well, how do you create your own reality? And so she started talking about thoughts, and thoughts is one of the ways that we create our own reality. But she went with thoughts, and she said, you're either repelling things from you or attracting things to you based on the way you think. And for me, it was like the way I think. You know, it was one of those moments where I didn't realize that there was a difference between me and my thoughts. I thought I was my thoughts. And so that was a big moment of like, what? You know, again, she could see that something was happening within me. And even she said to me, okay, I need you to do this. I want you to go home. I want you to start paying attention to your thoughts for about a week, and we'll make another appointment and then come back to me. So I actually started paying attention to what I was thinking, and I couldn't believe how negative I was about myself, about others, about God, about, you know, whatever. And that was something that was a huge realization for me. And since negative thoughts repel the things that we want from us, it made sense for me to learn how to change those thoughts. And meditation was a really great tool to help me slow down my thoughts so I could actually change them, so then I could change my reality.
Yeah. Wow. You said so many really cool things back there that I think a lot of us on the journey have experienced that, and that finding people who emanate that reality is so life-changing. And you just, when you come across someone like that, you know, like they're just on a different level, even if you don't have the language for it, right? Which is kind of what you were saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny because Melanie told me so many years back, she goes, oh, you're a channel. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Right. And now for the last 5 years and even through all of my books that I've written, all of them have been downloaded, channeled. You know, I'm a message for, I don't know how you know, whatever words you want to say that. But, yeah, so it's interesting that she saw that in me all those years ago when I didn't even know what a channeler was.
Yeah, I think one thing I want to also comment on is the negative dialogue, which it is such a pervasive, all-encompassing thing that's part of our collective culture that if you don't notice it, you can really get swept away with it. And also to say that I forget what the statistic is, but I think it's like 87 to like 90% of people think the exact same thoughts the next day. Like you have, let's say, 100,000 thoughts in a day, and most of us are thinking the same thoughts. And like, even that should stop you in your tracks when you're thinking about creating a different reality for yourself.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's funny when you do some type of daily, you know, success habit, or you do some kind of ritual every day, it's really not to just get over the thoughts. It's to pre-pave so that you're implanting and you're deliberately focusing your mind on what you do want to think about, what you do want to believe, and what perspective or pictures you're wanting to hold in your mind. So doing that pre-paving work before you even jump into your day is important, because if we don't, you know, take control, if you will, if we don't, you know, put in those better thoughts, we're going to go to our default thoughts, which you said, it's in mass consciousness, you know?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's interesting too to think about how we are constantly thinking about our past selves. And if you what you just said that right there is creating a roadmap and an actual path way forward to our future self, who we should really be thinking about more than we are thinking about our past. So if you can find that delineation and then cut over to the right and really cultivate your future self, that is super life changing. So I want to talk to you about your book, which is called The Desire Factor: How to Embrace Materialistic Nature to Reclaim Your Full Spiritual Power. I think first we should tell the audience a little bit about what was the inception of this book, what is its its goal and intention out in the world, and then just give them a baseline, and then I've got some real questions here about the book for you.
Perfect. I just want to say something about what you said, because that was brilliant about connecting with our future self. And the thing to understand is like all time is simultaneous, right?
Yes.
So we can think of something that happened in our past that evokes emotions now. And then, it affects our present moment, just like if we're projecting into a future that looks dark and scary, that's going to affect us in our now. And ultimately, the goal is to be in our now, to be where our true power lies in this present moment. But our brains cycle between the past, the present, the future. Even just something on, what are we going to eat? What did I eat yesterday? What did I have before? It's like we go there to then reference point. And so as you're circumventing and really being able to be deliberate in what you want your future to look like and that future self that you want to connect with, as you're projecting into a future that looks bright, that looks exciting, that looks fun, then you're going to feel good in your now. And so really the goal is to clean up the stuff from the past energetically. You can't change the past. We can't change those memories, but we can certainly let go of the emotions and the stuck emotions, the imprints from the past, so that it's like a clean line between the past, the present, and the future, the present, and the past. So it's kind of like it's all happening all at once. So
all of that.
I just had to say that.
Just preach, girl. Just preach it out. Yeah, all of it.
Thank you. Thank you. So, this book, The Desire Factor, it's interesting because I was in Venice when I always get these just downloads when I'm on vacation or when I'm on a cruise ship. My book, Quantum Success, was birthed in the middle of the, Atlantic Ocean. So, I was in Venice with my family, and it was interesting because the last time I had been in Venice was about 10 years prior. And I was there with my mom and my dad and my boyfriend at the time, Frederick, and who's now my husband of 17 years. But my boyfriend at the time, and we walked into a bunch of stores in Venice, and I was like, I thought I died and went to heaven, because if you've ever been to Venice, there's like Fenty, Dior, Valentino. I mean, it was like just went on and on and on with all of the top designers. And I was like a kid in a candy store. So I'm like going in and out of these different stores and Dolce & Gabbana. And my husband or boyfriend at the time is looking at me going, oh my God, like I'm freaking him out, because this is the kind of fashion I like, right? Prada and all that stuff. And he says to me later, he goes, I can't afford you. And I had just started my business full time with coaching at the time. And I said to him, you don't need to afford me. I'll afford myself. I'm like, first of all, where am I going to wear a Valentino gown? I don't think you have anything to worry about. However, if I choose to someday come back to Venice, and I go, you know what? Someday I am going to come back to Venice with you, and I am going to buy myself whatever purse I want to buy, because I can, as a symbol of the success that I've had in my business. And he's like, okay, right? So here we are 10 something years later. And not only were we in Venice, we were on a cruise ship, and I had gifted my mom and dad and our two sons, this beautiful trip to the Mediterranean cruise. And one of the stops was Venice. And there we were on my dad's birthday, having cannolis and cappuccino and, the middle of San Marcos Square. It was just glorious.
My dream life, basically.
It's awesome. And so my parents and the kids went back on the ship, and my husband and I'm like, today's the day. we're going shopping, right? And I'm not going to go and go, I can't afford anything, right? So I was like, whatever purse, and if there's nothing I like, I'm not just going to buy something, but I am going to get whatever I want. And so we went in, we had fun shopping, and it was a very different experience this time. And I remember going into Dolce & Gabbana. I saw the exact purse that I wanted. I bought it. There was many other purses that were cute and were more expensive, but this is the one that I wanted. And so we had a lovely lunch. We get back on the ship. I'm unwrapping the purse and I'm like, this represents my success. This represents the success that my business had in all of those years. This represents that younger self that said, someday I'm going to, right? That hope, that desire. And so I'm holding the purse in my hands and I'm just admiring it. And I hear a voice in my head saying, that is so materialistic. And I'm like, who said that? You know, get out of my head, you know? And it was
I'm on vacation,
right? Leave me alone. And it was my sister's voice inside of my head, because whenever I had liked something that was, you know, something towards fashion, I've always loved fashion. She'd be like, you're so materialistic, you know, and cut down those moments. And so here I was with this just beautiful purse, and I could hear her saying that. So it's like, am I going to let that voice ruin this moment that represented a solidification of a desire of my business success, you know, and what that business success represented, especially since I'm in personal development. And that meant a lot of people's lives are getting changed because of my programs and because of my services, right? So that just started downloading through me that no matter what our desires are, it could be a set of golf clubs, it could be to travel somewhere, it could be to, you know, create a partner, to buy your dream home, to drive your dream car. Whatever the desire is, all desires are an implant. They're a gift. It's like an idea. We don't create an idea. We're the receiver of the idea. We're the receiver of that desire. And we can either do one of three things with a desire. We could either get excited about it. We could feed into that desire, which feels good, which enlivens us, which allows us to become more of who we are. Or we can go, okay, and then do nothing with it. Let it just kind of, you know, nothing. Or we can negate it, which most people do, right? Oh, I'm too old to do that, or I'm too young to do that, or I'm too short to do that, or I'm too fat to do that, or my family's never done that, or nobody I've never known is, I don't know how to do that. There's so many ways that we stop the flow of our desires, and therefore the life force that gets created within us, that great energy of joy and enthusiasm and passion and purpose, all of that is just a divine extension, right? And when we put that as a vehicle into a desire and we move with that energy, we feel enlivened, we feel great. And then, but it's the beliefs that, can I do this? Am I deserving of doing this? Am I able to do this? I don't know how to do this, right? So it's important for this book, because the first iteration of the book was all about desires are not only okay, they're encouraged. Because there's so much out there about, oh, you know, desires are materialistic and you shouldn't want that. Or desires are the root of all suffering, you know, having a desire. So there's a lot of things that are said out there that, you know, we shouldn't want the things that we want. And so a lot of us just suppress that. Oh, I like that, but I shouldn't want it. We don't allow or give ourselves permission to have those things.
Yeah. I mean, you said so many things. I was going to hold this question till the end, but I think it's in the right vein of asking this question, because what you're talking about here is constraint and inflation in our desire, which are the two extremes that most of us are living, because we're in a culture of denial of desire, and in a healthy way. So my question to you is, you know, how does denying our desire sabotage our ability to live into the fullness of our abilities, into our happiness and our joy? Like, what does that look like when we're denying it constantly?
Well, when we are suppressing, you know, or denying it, or telling ourselves we can't have it, basically we're squashing that desire, because we have been given a desire for the aspect of, from the higher perspective, of growth, of expansion, because it's never about the desire. It's who we become in the process of that desire. So,
Yes.
so even though many years ago I had this desire to go shopping in Venice, right? My desire really was to have a successful business and to be able to have that feeling of freedom and also contribution, service and money, to be able to feel on passion and purpose with what I do and also make a great living doing it. And so that was like a symbol, like every desire is a symbol of who we are becoming in the process. And if we deny that, if we suppress that, we're denying our ability to expand and to grow. And, it's really easy to go, well, that's okay. I don't need anything else. Or, oh, I'm fine the way I am. And it's like, that's not who we are. We're growth seeking, expansive, desire seeking beings.
Well, and it's interesting to think about like when we are creating that suppression of that denial, it just comes out sideways sometimes too. And then it ends up sabotaging us in interesting ways. And I think what you're also speaking to there, which is, I think the adage is like, money and fame don't change you. They just reveal who you are. And it's probably the same with desire, which I think is what you're trying to point to here. And I think we have this bad taste in our mouth. And I noticed some of the reviews in your book had a rumblings of like, where did our suppression of desire start? Could it have been with Adam and Eve? And so I'm curious to ask that question to you, like, where did this suppression and this negative connotation around desire incept? And then how is it sort of percolating in our general consciousness as a society?
Well, I mean, think about what you're bringing up just for women in general. I mean, there is like this whole thing that goes back to the very first woman, right? That Eve desired to bite the apple, right? Because
the girl was hungry.
Well, if you have a big shiny apple in front of you, right? It's like, are you going to go, oh, okay, I'm not going to eat that, right? And first of all, I don't know how true the story really is, because the last time I checked, and I live in Arizona where there are snakes, I've never seen a talking snake. I don't know that anybody that has. However, you've got something like an apple in front of you, right? You've got a car or a house or a partner, something in front of you. Are you not going to want to interact with it? Are you not going to want to taste it? Are you not going to want to drive it? Are you not going to want to experience it? We're here to experience these things in life. And so you've got this shiny, beautiful apple. It tastes awesome. Like you're saying, she was hungry, right? So hello, eat it. And so that's the thing, is that it's a story that has been passed down about the first woman and man, and what did she do? Well, she ruined it for everybody. So like there's this bad connotation even in the underworkings of our entire society, because Eve screwed it up for everybody. It's the woman's fault, right? Kind of thing. And it's not true. And that we get to be able to craft an idea, receive an idea, create a desire, and then also have it. I never understood that expression, you want your cake and eat it too. Well, of course. What's the point of cake if you can't eat it?
Well, I think also too, it's like the metaphorical hunger. And we also know factually now through, literal excavations of that time, as it wasn't even an apple. It was probably a pomegranate. And I'm not turning down a pomegranate. I don't care who I am. So to your point, I think it's like, yes, there's that underpinning that women have been blamed, that we all have learned to suppress our desire. And that desire also, that suppression of that desire, it reverberates throughout all of our lives. So our sensual desire, our eros, our food, we could take this to any point on the map and say, this was a pinnacle time in our lives where we were shown that we cannot live into the fullness of who we are as women because we can't be trusted. Yes. And that turns into a whole other ball of wax, which I love that you're trying to undo all of that in this book. I wondered, in that vein, when we think about aligning our desires and our spiritual practices and our beliefs, what does that look like?
Well, when we align our desires and our beliefs, we give ourselves permission to say, would I want that? Would I desire that? What would I love in this aspect of my life? Right? What would I love here? What would I love there? And to not judge ourselves for that, to not go, oh God, that's so materialistic, or to say, oh, I'd be bad or wrong for wanting that, but to just really give ourselves permission within ourselves to say, I would love that. Because that's where a lot of times competition among women comes out, because we see someone that's doing what we want to do or having what we want to have, and then we go, she's so this or that, and we judge that person instead of looking at them as a competition, or that you're better than them because you don't want that, or you're better than them because you have something they don't have. Instead, that's kind of like you said, coming out sideways. Instead, if you look at someone, a woman in particular, that has what you want, and you get to go, wow, I'm so inspired by that. That has evoked something in me. I didn't realize that I desired to take a trip like that as well. Mm-hmm. Or I didn't realize that having a partner was important to me. And now I'm kind of feeling jealous of this person. Maybe I too want to look at that. Maybe I do want a partner. And then, it's the part of us that thinks that we can't have a partner, or that, there's no good men left, or that, there's not enough women, or, whatever that has that limitation, that has that lack mentality, that if they have it, then I can't. If they've created it, it's evidence that you have the ability to create it, because there's evidence it's being created. And so to look at another woman and be inspired, or another man to be inspired by someone that has, or drives, or, lives in, or has a business like you like, or whatever it is, and to look at them and say, wow, I too would like that. I don't want it exactly that way. So if I wanted to create it the way I want it, what would I want to do? Because then your focus comes back on yourself, and you're giving yourself permission to dream and to desire, and, to have that energy flowing through. Anytime in life when we're looking at something that we prefer, that we like, that we desire, that feels good, we feel good in the thinking of it. Right? Mm-hmm. It's when we think about what we don't want, or we're pushing against something, or complaining about something, that's when we feel bad. That's based on the whole law of sufficiency and abundance. If you think about it, there's like 3 buckets of beingness, right? There's like all the lower level emotions, such as fear and doubt and worry and sadness and anger and frustration and disappointment. They're all coming from a lower level vibration that is based in lack. And then you have the next level, which is satisfaction. You don't feel like crazy over the top, but it's where peace and contentment and satisfaction and fulfillment and, compassion is in that second bubble, if you will.
Yeah.
Or bucket. And then the next one is all those higher flying emotions, such as passion and purpose and freedom and joy and excitement and bliss and abundance and all that. And so whenever we're in lack, or another way of saying is, whenever we're feeling bad, we're in lack. Mm-hmm. And if we can just look at, what am I thinking? What am I saying? What am I believing or picturing in my own mind? What am I feeling? What am I doing that's keeping me there? We can let ourselves feel compassion for that moment, and feel that compassion, which neutralizes us into that second bucket, right? Which gives us a sense of peace and contentment. And then we can choose to go further into a sense of excitement or passion. But by looking at what we want, we feel good. By looking at what we don't want, we always feel bad. So why are desires bad?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about moving from bucket 2 to bucket 3, and also how there's like a creativity component when you're doing that contemplative internal practice of, instead of judging and asking, like, what is this showing me? If I look at somebody and I see that they're doing something that seems really cool, or like something that I don't think I could do, or I feel like, gosh, I wish I could have the freedom of living outside of the 9 to 5, like all of the like general tropes we hear about that. But thinking about how that also invites in our creativity to create a creative solution to move from bucket 2 to bucket 3 is really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it's important. It's important work. It's internal work, right? It's manifestation work, because there's such a, I know a lot of people talk about manifesting, right? And it's like, oh, you got to manifest this. We are manifesting beings. We're manifesting all the time. We manifest with the thoughts and the words. We manifest with our consciousness. So every moment of every day, we're manifesting. It's not like we have to go to manifest. It's like talking about law of attraction. Oh, I'm working with law of attraction, or, law of attraction doesn't work. No, law of attraction is always working. It's us. If we're in alignment with what we want, then we're going to get more of that. If we're pushing against what we don't, law of attraction is going to bring that to us. So law of attraction is always working. We're always manifesting every moment of every day. The question is, what are we focusing on that we're manifesting?
Yeah. And it's interesting, even just with that. And I know I've had tons of conversations with people about this on the podcast, is like when you're dealing with people who are in that state of like unsureness and negativity, it's very clear for them to see how they're manifesting their lives through negative thoughts and ideas and framing of situations. But the moment you try to teach them or even pivot them just a little to the left to say like, what if you thought about this? Like, it's so scary. I wondered what you have to say about getting to that pivot point where you can move away from feeling like, yeah, I know I can manifest really negative things, but I want to manifest positive things. Like, how do you create that pivot in people?
Well, the thing is that there's a lot of imprints that we have emotionally. And so when someone is stuck in a place of looking at things negatively, or they're pushing against what they don't want, when you start to get them to pivot and look at, and one of my favorite pivot tools is literally, it's so easy. It works every time. It's 3 questions. Ask yourself, what do you want? Why do you want it? And how do I want to feel? The what do I want focuses the mind, which is important, on what you want instead. The why do you want it gets the emotions involved. And a lot of times when you're thinking about why do you want more money? Why do you want the partner? A lot of times you come up with and you go deeper into the real reason that you want something. So beyond even just and shallow is fine too, but no judgment on that. But beyond the shallow level, you go deeper into, why do I really want this? Because ultimately you're going to get to a feeling. Whatever we want in life, it's because we think we're going to feel a certain way when we get it. And so what do I want? Why do I want it? How do I want to feel? Those 3 questions really ground you into yourself. And when you are understanding, well, I just want to feel free. I want to feel stable. I want to feel secure. I want to feel passion. I want to feel purpose. Then you can understand that everything is energy, and that frequency exists right now. You don't have to go get the promotion or go make more money or go do this or that in order to feel. It's like cutting out the middleman. You could just start to cultivate the feeling that you're wanting now, and then that and many other infinite things will be drawn to you by already feeling that feeling. Yes, you have to take action, do things, but
that's a big one.
But it's not all doing, right? Yeah. It's like, it's not all doing and then, I'll get the feeling. It's a balance between feeling what you want to feel while you take the steps in doing what you want to do. But here's the thing with pivoting people from what they don't want into what they do want. The number one fear, when they start to have that, oh my gosh, I could create that. Oh my gosh, well, this is what I want. They start to have that hope. They start to have that feeling of expansion, right? A couple of things happen. First of all, as they start thinking about it, their doubt comes in that, can I really do that? No, I don't think I can. If I try to go for this and I get disappointed, I don't think I can handle that. So I'm just going to be over here. Because disappointment, when someone doesn't understand that disappointment is just an emotion, and emotions are just energy, and that there are processes and tools to process your emotions very easily. It actually takes about 90 seconds when you know how to process it properly. That if you get disappointed, you work the energy and you release the disappointment, but at least you're moving in a direction that feels good for you. The other thing is too, is that I was mentioning earlier, is that, it's typically a positive emotion. We're going along in life, we're feeling excited about something, or, we're feeling love, or we're feeling appreciation, and boom, I like to call it a bushwhack, right? Someone says something or doesn't say something, or someone does something, or we get bad news, right? There's so much opportunity for contrast because we live in a variety, planet of variety,
Yes.
right? The polar opposites and up and down and all that. Well, as we're going along and we have someone, maybe we find out a friend betrays us and we don't process that emotion, we then have like an energetic imprint within us. And because energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can be transformed and moved, it literally will not. It still spins and it still moves and it's stuck within us. But that imprint attracts more situations. So say it's disappointment, using that as an example. I'm feeling disappointment. I'm closing down. I'm not okay to feel that. So I'm going to hold on to this, and I'm told not to feel disappointment. So I'm not going to feel it. Now that's like a vortex through which we attract more things that hit that disappointment bubble. And so we then go, oh, I just can't handle that. It's too painful, right? It's like someone that has a sunburn, right? If you were to walk up to a normal person and go, hey, how you doing? They're like, I'm good, right? You hit someone like that with a sunburn and they're like, ow. It's sensitivity. It's a pain point. It's a pain body. And when we have those bushwhacks, what happens, it's the positive emotions that get bushwhacked. We associate the positive emotion or the pleasure emotions with that bad thing. I was feeling good and then this happened. So I don't know if that feeling good is safe, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'll use an example. When I was 5 years old, I was at a day camp and I was so excited because I had never seen a horse before. My parents were not outdoorsy kind of people, right? And so they brought this huge horse. Of course, I was 5 and I'm also very tiny, but this horse was huge. And they said that we could ride it and we could get on top of it. And I was like, oh my God, me. I was so excited, right? And so they put me at the back and 2 other little girls on the horse in front of me. And I was up, I still remember this to this day. I was on that horse and I was like, wow, I'm so tall, I'm so high up. And I was petting the horse's butt and, the hair, and I was seeing the tail behind me, just a cool experience. I'd never been so excited in my life. Well, I didn't know what happened, but all of a sudden, now I know, a dog came and scared the horse. The horse bucked up. I was on the back end, fell to the ground, and then the 2 little girls fell on top of me. So as all 3 of us got up, we all had the wind knocked out of us, but I couldn't catch any breath at all. I was like gasping, for air. And so I was terrified. I thought I was going to die. So that whole emotion of excitement that I was feeling in that bushwhacking moment led to I could die. So I would end up through most of my adult life, thank God I realized this and let this go and healed from it. But most of my adult life, when I would get so excited about something, the saboteur in me would kick in, the part that wants to protect me, and would say, uh-oh, it's like alert, she's getting too excited, she could die. And it pulls back, right? It had me do things that would sabotage myself, or I would attract something else where it didn't come to fruition or it didn't work out. And so that's the thing that we have to understand, is that we're controlling all the shots, really, is that when we realize that emotion, like love, for some people it's like, oh, I don't want to be in a relationship because love is, I'm too vulnerable and I'll get hurt, and or it could be passion about something. It could be on purpose. It could be joy. Whatever the emotion is that feels good. What happens in the brain is those parts of the pleasure, sensors, if you will, they go to push against instead. It's kind of like a teeter-totter. So instead of us being in that state of seeking and looking for pleasure, we're looking for ways to avoid more pain, which is when you look at it, we're focused on what we don't want instead of what we do want.
Yeah, that's such a detailed explanation. And I really, really appreciate that you went down to that granular level, because I think it's something that people do get really caught up in. And when they're trying to relinquish these old imprinted thoughts and limitations and ideas of who they are and what their family has told them they are and what they can achieve and what they can accomplish in their life, that usually trips them up in such a way that they give up. And then it's like, well, I'll just go back to my regular life. And it's like you're on the precipice of something so beautiful. And even I feel like we don't have the right language here to express, like, it's something you have to experience yourself, getting out of that mentality and over to where you are, where I am, where a lot of people who have crossed that bridge get to that other side. And then you realize just the expansiveness of all of it is so profound and so limitless that, again, like, and those two words still don't even do it justice.
Right.
I do want to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and you know what though, at every single, whether you call it level or, stage,
whatever, yeah.
We're always going to have limits, because as we are here, right? And we have a desire that is bigger, higher than us, right? That is at a different vibratory rate than where we currently are. Those limits of who we are need to be released. And once they are, we then buoy up, and then we're matching that vibration. Well, as because we are all, seeking different experiences and all that, we then create another desire, or we get another desire, or we create another goal. And then, so it's this constant movement up. It's always bridging that gap from where we are to where we want to be. So there's always going to be something to release, a different perspective to gain, a limitation to let go of. And when you look at it that way of, oh, this is just my upper limit on this, and I can release this, and the proper tools, and that's what we teach through Quantum Energy Mastery and Quantum Success Coaching Academy and all that. When you learn proper tools and techniques to let that stuff go, which they work, then you can get right back where you want to be. But there's always going to be this evolvement, right? I remember
I love that. It's so spot on.
Thank you. It's so true. And that's why I think a lot of people, I know for myself, when I was like, I learned about law of attraction, manifesting everything we want. I'll never forget this moment. I was supposed to take a flight and the flight got canceled. I was like, but I practice law of attraction. How could that happen? It's like, I thought my world was going to be absolutely perfect because I understood law of attraction. And it's like, you have to understand there's still contrast that happens. And the contrast happens, but what we do against we either can resist the contrast, or we can go, oh, okay, that's not what I want. What I want is this instead. And be able to pivot off of that, right? And understand that. So I think that when people get that, there's always going to be another level to get to. And with that another level to get to, then there's going to be more expansion. That's an opportunity. But in order to have that expansion, there has to be a letting go of something, a detachment from something, in order to expand into the new thing.
So good. Get a bigger high heel, do some yoga, stretch to that upper limit every time, do it. I did want to ask you one more question, and I thought maybe, I don't know if you want to pick one of the 7, but I did want to highlight the 7 principles of the desire factor. So I don't know if there's one or two that are more important, or if they're all the same, or just however you want to sort of put them all together, that we might end there because we're getting close to the end, but thought we would talk about the 7 principles of the desire factors.
Yes. So let me just talk about them all in general for one, because they're all important and they all build on each other. It's kind of like a combination lock, right? If you get anything out of order when you're trying to open up the lock, it doesn't open. And so that's what the council brought through these 7 principles, and that they go in the exact order. It's literally how energy sets up, how a manifestation, it's like the pre-work that you do before a manifestation pops. And then the after work, the post pop, if you will, of how post pop.
Please trademark that.
That's funny. But it's like, once energy pops through, it just starts over again, right? It's always in flow. And so this is how literally the 7 principles of how manifestation happens. And so my favorite of all of them, although all of them again are important, is the fourth principle. And that's the principle of having. Because the principle of having really states that if you do want to get to that next level, right? If you do want to become that vibrational match to it, you can't be absent from the vibration. So you have to feel your way into it. You have to imagine having it and feel what it would feel like to actually have it. Because then, whether it's 100% accurate or not, you're working towards what it feels like to feel that vibration. And then you are a vibrational match to it. And so having is that key to really being able to attract, to be that vibrational match to what we want. And it's, I mean, there's so much more I could go into as far as that principle, but that's really the biggest part of it is that, you know, once you have it, once you have that sense of what it feels like, then to love it, you know, love the feeling of it, which the principle of love, which is the fifth principle, is it's the highest vibration in the universe. It's the manifestational principle. And, you know, that like the energy of love is so powerful. I mean, it creates everything. And so as we surround that feeling of having, I have this and I love it. Now you're like taking it and, you know, like amplifying up that feeling. And it just, you just feel good in the process. And really isn't that the whole point of it anyway?
Yeah. Yeah. I love all of that. So how can everyone connect with you on social media? Where do you hang out? What do you have coming up? You've mentioned your coaching academy a few times, but like, what are all the places and what are all the things people need to know about you?
Well, there's a lot. I've been doing this a long time, but
I know you're the Snoop Dogg of this.
Snoop Dogg. I like that. I'm the Snoop Dogg. So yeah, you could go to ChristyWhitman.com. Any way you spell it, you're going to get there. I also have watchyourwords.com because watching our words is one of the first ways that we can really master our energy. And so I have a 10-day free program that everybody can join in on. And it's video programs. They're like 2 to 3 minutes in length every day for 10 days. They tell you what not to say, why, and what to say instead, because words have creative power. So watchyourwords.com, ChristyWhitman.com. I'm on all social media, Instagram. I'm Christy Whitman 1. So I'm everywhere. You Google me.
You are everywhere. You are the OG forever. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to weave that into the title of this episode. And then I always like to end in gratitude and just kind of check in with my guests and see, you know, what are they anchoring themselves in? 3 things this week, this month, sort of whatever's in your heart center today.
You know, I love that you're saying 3 things. If I could just take one thing and then give 3 reasons why, because I find for me, that grounds it in even more. So I'm grateful for my husband. And the reason I'm grateful for him is because he's just such an amazing partner. He's an amazing dad. He is just my evidence that love exists. And he's just constantly, you know, just supporting me in what I want to do. And so I'm always and forever grateful for him.
Oh, I love that. That's sweet. Well, I had such a wonderful time with you and getting to be able to riff off of your ideas and the really big things that people need in their life to sort of elevate themselves and break that upper limit, which is so key. I think we could spend another hour here just talking about that. And also too, I did want to mention too back there, something you said that I think is really important about that upper limit is that we are all bumping up against that. Like there is no final destination. There is so much more growth available to us if we want it. And I think sometimes there's this like preconceived notion that there's some end point, but like that would be so boring if we got to the end, right?
Yeah. Like I am done wanting anything. That just doesn't happen. Right. I remember really quickly, I remember being single, right? And I was single and I wanted a man. I got the man and then it was like, well, let's live together. And then we wanted to buy a house and we bought the house and then we got married and then we got a baby and then we got another baby. So then we needed a bigger house. You know, it was like the evolvement goes on and on and on and on. So that's the fun of it. You know, when it's coming from a place of this is fun and this is what I desire and this desire feels good. It's very different than I have to have it because I'm not enough, or, you're in lack of something, or you're fearing of not having, what you want. It's a very different creation when you're coming from a place of feeling satisfied and excited for what's coming.
Or even from that competitive state where it's like comparison to other people, like I should have this because they have X, Y, and Z. I mean, that is the worst thing ever, just to like, don't do that, because it's just like you will always, I feel like the formula is always happiness whenever you go down that pathway.
Totally.
Well, thank you so much. I had such a delightful time with you today. It was wonderful. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Krista, and for what you do. Congratulations on all your success on the podcast.
This podcast was written, directed, and produced by me, your host, Krista Ziomata, in alignment with Light Casting. Music curated and created by Mr. Pixie. You can find I'm Awake Now What on all social media channels by searching IANW Podcast. Head over to your favorite podcast app and subscribe, download, rate, and review. Come back every Sunday to partake in a new and enlightening conversation. May you be filled with love and light until we meet again.